we're going with the theme of All right, good evening and thank you so much for joining me. I know it's been a while since I've done a Wednesday evening live, but budget was 2 days ago and I feel like I want to strike the iron while it's hot. I ain't want to lose out on the opportunity to talk about it because by Friday evening, the response to the budget is going to begin. And then we will have, no, not Friday evening, I think Friday morning. I think it's Friday morning, 10 o'clock. That is when the opposition leader ought to be on her legs and discussing budget 2022. So I felt, we needed to come and, pull up on my gap here a little bit, talk about the budget. And I didn't want to talk about it by myself. I mean, Sunday I talked about what we should expect in a budget or look for in a budget and how a budget is meant to work. But I thought, let me bring people who's supposed to know about finance and who have a background in finance here, and we could talk about it. So I reached out to the Ministry of Finance, and one of the ministers of finance said, yes, he will make time for me. And so this is the first time we're having this particular guest here. Let me add him. There we go.
Hello. Good evening, Rhoda. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks for having me.
Hi. So we have the Honorable Brian Manning with us here this afternoon, Minister in the Ministry of Finance. Also the MP for San Fernando East.
That is correct.
And you can't necessarily avoid discussing your heritage here because you're one of those famous last names. So the son of the former, you're one of those famous last names. The son of the former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Patrick Manning himself. So, Brian, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making the time, because I know you have a very busy day these days. As aspects of the budget come into play.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And, I'm glad that I have a budget that I think a lot of people are happy with, and one that I think really spurs the economy while protecting the most vulnerable amongst us. And that, to me, is very important during this time in our economic history.
How do you see it spurring the economy? Because, I mean, there's been feedback. I mean, it was 3 hours and 30 something minutes of a budget being read, almost 4 hours of a budget being read. And the next day, the feedback for the most part, I would say, seemed to be on the positive side. And then today, there was a lot of noise in the public domain today. So tell me why you think tell me why you think that
well, one major thing is that government did not cut significant spending into the economy. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, whether we like it or not, is a big part of the economic driver of Trinidad and Tobago. So we maintained spending, even if it meant having a further deficit budget. We did have a goal of wrapping up deficit budgets in Trinidad and Tobago by the year 2022, but of course, we were interrupted by COVID, and I believe the goal now is 2024. Government could have decided to significantly cut its spending and implement some severe austerity measures, as some persons in the public domain have been calling for. But we recognize the level of social hardship such a move would have created, especially at this point in time where so many people are now attempting to recover from the global COVID crisis.
Minister, what could some of the cuts have been? Because just this afternoon, let me just adjust my audio here a little bit. Just this afternoon, I was in a conversation with someone on social media, and his complaint was this was the 6th consecutive deficit budget. I know we've been running deficit budgets since around either 2008, 2009. So it would have been from, yes,
I think it's longer than that. Since the financial crisis, basically, from
from
2008.
2008. That's it. So from
That,
2008.
that's Yes,
All right.
that's when the slide really started,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a global financial crisis. Economic activity slowed down, and therefore the demand for oil and gas also slowed down. Then there was 2014, where there was also a slowdown in demand for oil and gas. 2016, there were tensions between Saudi Arabia and Russia, which also caused a collapse in the price of oil and gas. And then we were hit by a global pandemic in COVID. So we've barely been lurching from challenge to challenge in our economy, and that's why things have been so difficult. And the government has been doing its best to really protect our economy while creating opportunity for growth and protecting the most vulnerable at the same time. And that's the reason why we remain the only investment grade country in this region at this point in time, which means we have the ability to repay our debts.
No, I think that's one of the things that people tend to forget is the context against which those deficit budgets took place. So they don't
Exactly.
remember that 2008 was the financial collapse.
Was the end of the world, basically.
Right. And that's what led
Yeah.
to us having to bail out CLICO, right? The 2008
Yes,
collapse.
that's exactly why they collapsed. The financial crisis was a major role in that.
Right. And then we went from there into the decline in energy prices, and we've had two oil shocks since, and of course now there's the pandemic. So
Yes.
Minister Imbert would have outlined his reasons for not engaging with IMF austerity measures, and I want to
Yes.
I'm pretty certain that you will be aligned with Minister Imbert, but I'd like for you to explain why are you in agreement with not taking
Yeah.
those kinds of austerity measures?
Well, first of all, they don't work. And that's the problem. And the IMF itself, the godfather of austerity measures, has publicly stated that they don't work. Coming out of the financial crisis, you have to understand the international multilateral agencies now have significant experience in dealing with global economic downturns coming out of the financial crisis. And there's an example of Greece, where Greece was a developing country and they implemented these severe austerity measures in Greece. And it severely damaged their economy and also the social fabric of Greece. To the point where the IMF, Christine Lagarde, when she was in charge of the IMF, came out and publicly apologized to the people of Greece for austerity measures. The IMF has stated that countries like Trinidad and Tobago that have an investment grade rating and have the ability to attract low-cost debt on the international capital markets should continue to do so to really fund our way out of this global financial crisis caused by the COVID virus. So we have the IMF telling us that countries like ours do not need to borrow money from them, but other economic commentators in Trinidad and Tobago saying we should borrow money from the IMF. So how they reconcile the two things, I don't know.
Okay, so then what are your thoughts on the kind of borrowing that has taken place in the past and the kind of borrowing that is likely to take place within the next year to be able to fund the deficit? Because it's a $10 billion deficit, which means that some measure of borrowing has to take place. There may be a drawdown on the HSF, but some measure of borrowing has to take place.
Yes, it's a combination of borrowing and also, as you said, drawdowns on the HSF. We're an investment grade country. So fortunately, our level of borrowing is relatively inexpensive when you compare them to other countries in the region. So we will, of course, use this ability to borrow money in international capital markets at the lowest rates possible so that we can continue to grow this economy and to keep it running and keep people employed and to keep our development goals on track. So that's what we're going to do.
Right. I see that as you're talking about growing the economy, I see that there's a significant amount of relief for businesses that have been outlined in the budget.
Yes.
So how do you see the various initiatives, and if you can take them initiative by initiative and explain how you see them actually helping with economic growth?
Yes. Well, one has been a decrease in tax rates for SMEs. Also, decrease in tax rate for the manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector, as you know, is the second largest earner of foreign exchange in Trinidad and Tobago after the energy sector. That's extremely important. One of the issues we had with the SME sector is that government had given all of this funding to the commercial banks to really lend to a lot of the SMEs in Trinidad and Tobago to promote growth.
Let me just let the audience know, because some people might be confused about what SMEs are: small and medium enterprises. So we're looking at small businesses and medium businesses.
Yeah, sorry about that. And what we realized that a lot of the SMEs, their houses weren't in order. They had challenges with having audited financial statements, basic accounting. All of those things were an issue. So now that we have set up an initiative where we also offer technical support to SMEs, and that way they can be better prepared to access funding from the state and also from other sectors, but then also the ultimate goal of attracting private sector funding on the junior stock exchange. We really want to promote that. And any SME that eventually gets listed, it has a tax break for several years going forward. I believe it's 3 to 5 years, I believe, going forward. So we are promoting the SME growth because we want that to be a major engine of job creation in Trinidad and Tobago. We're also promoting the manufacturing sector because we recognize how important they are to generating foreign exchange for this economy and also creating jobs.
Well, Minister, the thing with promoting entrepreneurship in that way is that, and you and I, we were having this conversation before we got online, is that you have to get people away from a particular mindset of, dependency. People want government jobs, or people go after government jobs because it provides safety, right? You know, on the 28th of every month, something will hit your account, and so you are absolutely clear that within a 28-day cycle, you have money. But when you go into entrepreneurship, when you decide to become a business owner, a small business owner, there is there's risk involved. There are chances that you have to take. So how do you, where do you start getting a population to go from wanting to be cautious to being risk takers?
I think a lot of our young people today are a lot more entrepreneurial than our parents and maybe even our generation was. A lot of young people today have grown up with their heroes being, tech entrepreneurs, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, these guys. And we have a lot of young people who are willing to take that chance and that risk of going into business for themselves. I saw a lot of it, especially in the entertainment sector. Unfortunately, that entire sector was derailed by COVID. But I don't think that the creativity and the genius that I saw in that sector has gone away. And eventually those guys will be back on their feet. And you have to think about it. Carnival product now, if you're involved in, say, event management or even in the mass business itself, or even a soca artist, you had Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, and then they would do events for Barbados, there's Jamaica, there was Miami, LA, Toronto, you had Notting Hill Carnival. That industry was one that was showing a lot of growth. And I think it will be back eventually at some point. And there's a lot of creativity, especially in that sector.
Okay, that sector, and I think that persons who are creatively inclined, they generally tend to be risk takers because of that creative aspect. But there are other areas that we need growth in terms of entrepreneur. So I guess, how is the Ministry of Finance envisioning getting persons to move from that safety, that wanting the government to give them a job? Because again, this is another conversation I had online where somebody was saying to me on Twitter the day when we had the whole crash.
Yes.
Right. In the middle
when people lost their minds. Couldn't function anymore.
When people lost, how did you make out in the outage?
I welcome the break. Actually, from my phone buzzing every 5 seconds.
I hear you. So I was on Twitter while the budget was being read out, posting from time to time and also reading comments. And there was a young man there who was saying to me, he says, well, everybody benefited from GATE, or basically his generation, right? Benefited from GATE in that they got their first degrees, they have their education was paid for, but now there are no jobs, and they're hoping that the budget will say something about jobs. And in my mind, I was thinking to myself, Well, I'm not hoping that the budget is saying that the government is gonna give you jobs, because a government job can only take you so far. I'm hoping that
Yeah.
it says something about encouraging business and business development. So again, the
Yeah.
mindset. How?
What
Go
Well,
ahead.
one of the ways is to also make that transition easier, and one way is to improve our ease of doing business. That has been an obstacle in the past. If we make it easier for persons to become business owners and to become entrepreneurs, more people will be willing to take the risk and to take on that challenge. Digitization is a big part of that. We're trying to make the process less bureaucratic, make the access to government services, also government approvals and licenses, a lot easier. That has come under the purview of the Ministry of Digitization. So that's a big part of it. Also, we did create jobs in terms of the TTRA. I believe the Minister of Finance announced we're going to hire several young accountants to be involved in the TTRA.
In the
They're
Revenue
also,
Authority, there's a lot. I mean, the
yes,
Revenue Authority's announcement was something else that created a lot of noise and pushback. So,
yes.
what
Well,
is the Revenue Authority, and why
yeah.
is that a necessary thing?
Well, the Revenue Authority is essentially designed to improve the efficiency and the breadth of tax collection in Trinidad and Tobago. That's ultimately what it is. I saw one commentator say, fix BIR first, and then you can implement the TTRA, which misses the entire point of the TTRA, which is to increase efficiency and also widen the tax net and to ensure that everyone pays their equal share when it comes to tax collection. Because of the holes in the current system, there have been persons who have been getting by not paying their taxes, and they've been getting away with it, and of course, placing that burden on those who have been. The TTRA works to improve the efficiency and also ensure that everyone pays their fair share.
Right. And as you raise the issue there of taxing and taxation, obviously people are going to feel that they're not seeing value for money in terms of taxes. I pay taxes, and I would imagine that you, because you are now on the government payroll, you would, you're seeing tax coming out of your salary, right? Because
Absolutely.
the salary, your contract will say one thing, and then your pay slip they say something
Yes.
entirely
Yeah.
different, right?
Yes.
So let me use health surcharge as a for example. Health surcharge has been the same figure for decades, because I've actually
Yep.
asked persons inside the Ministry of Finance, have we ever had an increase in the health surcharge rate? And they were like, well, we've been here 30 years, and no, we never changed the health surcharge, right? We never changed the
Yeah.
health surcharge rate.
Yeah.
And it is only really in like this year of the pandemic that I literally paid attention to the health care that is being provided. Because, I'm not at that age yet where I need to access hospitals and health centers in any particular way. I'm not on any, particular prescription or medication or anything like that. So I only now started paying attention to it. And in now paying attention to it, I'm thinking to myself, okay, health surcharge is not a ridiculous amount. What would happen, let's say, if we were to increase health surcharge by say 10%, 10 cents, 15 cents
Yeah.
more? What would that lead to in terms of improvement in the healthcare sector, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming
There are also other charges. For instance, we have been discussing NIS,
right.
which is one that has also been historically low.
Mm-hmm.
But NIS or Social Security funds around the world have been running into challenges because people are living longer, healthier lives. A lot of people think that NIS is built on you put all this money away while you're working, and then you access that same funding when you retire. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
The people who are working now fund those that are retired now. Okay, so the retired population has been getting larger and larger.
Yeah, because we have an aging population.
And healthier,
yeah.
right? As do many countries around the world, and that has placed significant stress on retirement plans and social security plans around the world. So there has been some discussion about NIS charges going forward and a reform of the NIS scheme.
A revamping of the NIS system.
Yes.
So now to rectify what's going on here with taxes, because you just made the comment that the Revenue Authority is going to make sure that persons who are meant to be paying taxes start paying taxes. That means that persons who are outside of the tax net right now, who for whatever reason how their businesses run, how they are earning income, all of those things, they eventually meant to be inside the tax net. That is bound to lead to resistance and a certain amount of, I guess, oh God, the word was just in my head. But people are bound to be upset about it. In the same way I'm
Sure.
upset that they are outside of the tax net, right? Because
Sure.
I'm very upset that my tax
I don't.
dollars covering a whole bunch of people that are not paying
Exactly.
taxes.
I don't expect any tax rates to be welcomed with glee. You know, it's not, you know, as though it's Christmas. You know, but it's something that has to be done and something that has to be paid. Everyone has to pay their fair share, and you have to understand a lot of our expenses have been subsidized over the years from oil and gas, energy sector rents. Also, we implemented this year the gaming bill, which we expect, you know, which has brought uh, regularization, also taxation to the gaming and gambling industry, which was completely unfettered before that. And we expect to generate about $500 million a year in taxes from that single industry alone. So if everyone pays their fair share, it means a lighter load for everyone at the end of the day. And that is really what we're looking to.
I don't think people see that if they actually chipped in and did what they were supposed to do, then the rest of us who are compelled to, because nobody's actually want to pay taxes.
Exactly.
Right? No, I mean, if you gave people the option,
that's never a fun day for
exactly, it's never a fun day for anybody. If you gave people the option, you said to them, well, there's this thing, and if you pay it, you could do, you know, this could happen, but if, you know, you don't have to pay it. Nobody ever really wants to, nobody volunteers to pay taxes. And once you're in a particular system, certainly the public sector system, you get taxed regardless.
Exactly.
But private sector, there are aspects of private sector that have managed to escape and avoid things.
Agreed.
And then people complain about services and amenities here. And that is what gets me irritated. When I hear
that brings me to the whole property tax discussion.
Right.
You know, the same people.
Oh, you're going there? You're
tax,
going there, Minister?
I is going there. Okay. Right. The same people who complain about property taxes. I said, if it weren't for the services that property taxes pay for, you could not enjoy the use of your property. If it weren't for the roads that were repaired, fire services, local government, you know, all of those things, and the property tax is going to become the main driver of local government reform. It is to ensure that revenues generated within different communities are used within those communities to take care of services that need to be dealt with. And that way they won't have to go back to central government, lead to more efficiency, faster service. So it benefits us all in the long run.
But you know, there's a whole chicken and egg, or maybe catch-22 argument there, which is, you know, right now we're not seeing where our taxes going because the roads are like this and the utilities are like that, and so why should we be taxed more? So what's your response to that?
The lowest commercial and residential water and electricity rates in the entire hemisphere. That is not by accident. It's being paid for by the same taxes, by the same energy rents that we collect. That is because you are not paying for it doesn't mean it's free. It is being paid for somewhere else. So that just can't be true.
But I guess that's something that people don't understand. I don't think they understand that because we stopped paying land and building taxes in 2009 and nothing has happened. Oh my goodness, it's more than a decade since that. More than a decade, right? Yeah. So it's been more than a decade since that tax has been paid or collected. So there's been no revenue from that for the last 11 to 12 years
Correct.
or so.
So
what has been right? So what has been making up the shortfall in revenue?
So we haven't gotten any revenue from land and building taxes, and then the global energy sector has been impugned by various forces beyond our control. So how exactly do we keep Trinidad and Tobago operating and funding various projects and ensuring that we have the infrastructure that makes us attractive for foreign direct investment and other avenues that are going to create jobs and also revenues so that we can develop our country and achieve first world status. It doesn't happen in isolation. Trinbagonians need to understand that things are connected. I look at the economy. I tell people, we in Trinidad and Tobago want cheap cars, cheap gas, and no traffic. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, right? Everything has a cost to it, and too many times I've seen we want to have things both ways,
Yeah.
and it does not work that way. It's just that simple.
Agreed. So, local government reform, though, how do you see that
Yes,
happening? How do you see that happening? Knowing, I
yes.
think, don't you need like a special majority for that to take place?
Well, we've been coming up with creative ways of implementing legislation without having to need that special majority. I can tell you that the whole crux of local government reform is, as I said, generating revenues, collecting taxes in the various communities, and ensuring that those revenues are used to supply services in those areas, whether it's roads, it's drainage, infrastructure, basically local government issues. Without it, it would be incredibly difficult. For example, San Fernando East is an extremely residential constituency. So
Yeah.
if we were going to have local government reform and use revenues generated in our area in the constituency, most of that is going to come from property taxes. Period. There's no getting around that. And I would hazard a guess that there are many constituencies in Trinidad and Tobago just like that. So it has to be implemented.
You know, as you talk about your constituency, um, and the fact that your constituency is a heavily residential constituency, it
Yeah.
means that based on how tax collection could go or how property tax could go once there's reform and once collection of the tax has been passed through the, is now law, your constituency stands to be better financed in a sense.
Absolutely. And it creates jobs, it creates opportunities. I mean, we have roads that we need to pave in San Fernando East, trust me. I'm aware of every single one. And instead of having to wait on central government to approve expenditure for those purposes, we would have a pool of resources that allows us to fix these things and to offer services, whether it's spraying of mosquitoes, or basic local government services that could be paid for in-house by our own representatives. And it will severely cut down on the time and cost for implementing these things. So it is beneficial to all.
Okay. So, as we're talking about things that are beneficial to all, and I want to go back and touch on this a little bit. We started talking about digitization. What are you looking forward to or anticipating in terms of further digitization, especially in terms of services?
Yeah, I'm extremely excited about technology. It's one of my pet, um, one of the things I'm heavily involved in and have a huge interest in. And what we're really trying to do with our digitization effort is to bring the people of Trinidad and Tobago closer to government services, gaining easier and more access to government services online. There is the initiative where it's going to be a certain level of free Wi-Fi nationwide. It's going to start off at various spots, initially various hubs, and then it's going to eventually spread out to become a national program. Of course, it's not going to be high-speed Wi-Fi. It's going to be Wi-Fi fast enough to allow anyone anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago to access government services,
Right.
fill out forms, pay taxes, those basic things that you would want to do online. So it makes it a highly connected and tech society. What also is being done is the really putting everything online in terms of information. We have difficulty accessing information at this point in time, especially researchers like myself, other persons who may just want information for personal use. That is also a huge initiative. And I also believe that Trinidad and Tobago has an opportunity to become the tech hub and Silicon Valley, basically, of the entire region, because we have the infrastructure for it. And a lot of the international tech companies depend on energy-intensive industries to underpin those industries.
So when you say we've
there's
got
a
the
lot that can be
when you
done
say
there.
we have the infrastructure for it, how are you, like, what are the elements you're talking about there?
Well, there's an opportunity worldwide because of the geopolitical issues that are taking place right now between the United States and China, for us to become manufacturers of photovoltaic cells, for us to become manufacturers of semiconductors, which are basically microchips, data centers. All of these manufacturing industries underpin the tech industry, and they're all energy intensive. Trinidad and Tobago, international trade is generally built on competitive advantage. One of our greatest competitive advantages is our ability to produce low-cost energy, be it from natural gas. We are now building the largest solar farm in the entire region, which should generate about 150 megawatts of power when it's done. It'll be the largest in the region. We have a competitive advantage in energy-intensive industries, and there are various aspects of the tech sector that are energy-intensive.
Where is this solar farm?
It hasn't been developed yet. It's been approved.
So where is
be
it
constructed?
Where is it going to be? Sorry, where is it going to be located?
I believe one area is going to be in Piarco and another is going to be in central Trinidad.
Right. So we can switch. We can move to talking about sustainable energy and alternative forms of energy. What's the goal? What's the goal with this solar farm? Like, what are we planning to power? And I'm asking that because talking about solar powering is something that I've heard for a number of years, budget after budget after budget. I know there was an incentive at a point in time. I don't know if it still applies, but if you were going to be installing solar converters domestically, up to $10,000 would have been the tax break that you get, somewhere thereabouts. So and what I was told for quite a long time is we produce so much cheap gas here that switching to alternative forms of energy was really not a high priority for us. What's the goal now?
Well, we are of course signed on to the Paris Accord, which means that we have to reduce our carbon emissions by certain benchmarks year after year to continue being part of that agreement. We would use our solar energy to add to the national grid. And that would mean we would use less natural gas, which is what we use right now to generate electrical energy. We would use less natural gas to produce energy and use more solar power to do that. So that dramatically reduces our carbon emissions in one regard. And that's just one aspect. There's been discussions about producing green hydrogen, other uses for our natural gas in downstream energy. There's a lot that is going on, and you will eventually see.
I saw that hybrid vehicles or rather electric vehicles were part of the budget, one of the budget proposals. And there was a question, somebody just posted a question in the comment thread here, and I'm scrolling back up to it, but it was something to do with, the same way there's tax exemptions for vehicles. So whether or not there would be that, so there could be that sort of approach. Here's the question. There would be exemption of VAT and motor vehicle tax on electric cars no older than 2 years. Could these same exemptions be applied to electric cars and hybrid vehicles older than 2 years? So maybe a maximum of 4 years, because I think part of the concern coming out of that initiative that was announced on Monday is they're thinking roll on, roll off. People are unlikely to be able to get hybrid vehicles, at a reasonable price under 2 years of age. I guess that's part of the concern.
Yes. Well, what we would not want is for us to become a dumping ground for older used electric vehicles. Yes, we want to promote the use of electric vehicles because it's good for the environment, it's good for everyone, but we also don't want to become a dumping ground for these vehicles or any other type of vehicle. Trinidad and Tobago has a problem with congestion. We have a lot of cars here. As I said earlier, we have cheap gas and cheap cars.
No, we have a lot of cars. Your household is probably a 2-car household?
2-car, yes.
Right, as in, you've got a vehicle, and
wasn't that way when I was growing up?
No, that's the point I was about to make. When I was growing up, I lived in an extended family household, so there were multiple adults and of course lots of children around, and there was one car.
One car. We all used to share our lovely little Sentra, and we used to make it work.
But now,
or B13.
Yeah, now with improved quality of life, everybody has a vehicle. There was a question here. Someone was asking if the solar farm project you're referring to is the one that involves Shell and Lightsource. So Shell BP and Lightsource BP.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So back to the whole discussion about cars and not wanting us to be a dumping ground for vehicles. I'm in agreement with you there. And I'm also in agreement with the congestion that we have on the roads. up to me, really, what I would have liked to have seen isn't so much a movement to electric cars, but really a movement to mass transportation.
Mass transit. Yeah.
Mass transit.
Well,
I'm still convinced that that's the way we need to go if we want to improve our quality of life here. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think many right-thinking people completely agree with you that is the way to go. But of course, a mass transit system is quite expensive,
Yeah.
and the funding just has not been there, over the past few years. So in the interim, what you try to do is to reduce the number of cars on the roads in Trinidad and Tobago, and you make more eco-friendly options more available to people of Trinidad and Tobago. But I think at some point we have to revisit our mass transit program. We try to supply as many buses as we can and make those as inexpensive and as accessible as we can. But of course, mass transit is the way to go, and I think most people believe and understand that.
Well, I see PTSC these days stepping up its social media game.
Good
Since
for them.
since
Good for
private
them.
since taxis and maxis have been increasing their prices via the prices for various routes, PTSC has been regularly reposting announcements basically saying these are our prices. And we have nice air-conditioned buses with Wi-Fi, blah, 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 blah. So, if you want to
Correct.
save money. So, I mean, it would be great if certainly the main routes are reliable. When I say the major routes, right? Let me not just say
Yeah.
the main. The main major routes. So, Port of Spain to Arima, Port of Spain to Chaguanas, Port of Spain to San Fernando, remain or become as reliable as they can be, because I feel like between the bus system and the water taxi system, you're really in a position where you could have more vehicles coming off the road, and
Yes.
there be I guess less congestion in that way. Um, there was a point that you were making there that made me want to go back to digitization. Where you were talking about, right, so you were talking about congestion, and I was there thinking to myself, one of the ways to have less commuting taking place was if there was more effective work from home approaches.
Exactly. And one good thing that has come out of this pandemic is that a lot more businesses have become more tech savvy. They become more flexible, allowing people to work from home. There are a lot more online options, which is something that had to happen because we've been seeing all over the world this retail apocalypse taking place, where a lot of brick and mortar retailers have been going out of business. We, our local business people had to find a way to engage customers online, and I think many of them have done that. You can now purchase food from Massey and various other places online, and it's a movement that had to take place, and I'm glad that it has begun under the the adversity of this pandemic.
One of the things that I've been reading recently, I've been seeing a lot of this particular buzz phrase, the Great Resignation, certainly in the United States, certainly in North America, where there are a number of persons who have just kind of decided, no, we're not going back to 8 to 4 brick and mortar
Yeah,
situations.
they're not going back to the way things were.
Yeah, they're not going back to
And
the way. Do you foresee something like that happening here, where people just ups and decide, okay, all right, we've had enough of this?
well, there are a lot more opportunities and options in the United States, but I think you could see something like that in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. People become more empowered. There are a lot more people who can apply and access jobs online. Because you live in Trinidad and Tobago does not mean that your only revenue source is Trinidad and Tobago. So things are changing rapidly. I think that's going to force employers to become more competitive. We're becoming a more globalized society. We are all becoming citizens of the world, not just Trinidad and Tobago. And that forces us to think in a more globalized, universal context. I can easily live in Trinidad and Tobago, but work for a company that's located in the United States. That's an option our parents didn't
Did
have.
not did
And
not
that is the
have.
world that we live in today.
So, Minister, let me ask this. Thus far, to the best of my knowledge, the public sector is still at 50% capacity, right, in terms of the workforce being out. What do you think needs to happen for the government to consider a more hybrid approach to the workspace? right? What?
Um, I think we are. I think that's exactly what we're doing because uh, this pandemic has given us basically a testing ground for what could be done. A lot of some at one point for several months we couldn't go to the government offices, or you come in for certain days and you have a shift system and so on. So we got to understand what worked and what didn't, and I think that is going to show some organic growth going forward in terms of how we have an official policy in terms of working from home, especially in the public service. There's no doubt in my mind that things are not going to go back to the way that they used to be.
Well, this
And
might
especially with the traffic on the road and so on, people want to have more flexible options in terms of working.
well this might take us into into some sticky areas here, but
Mhm.
with 50% of the workforce, certainly the public sector workforce, still being at home, there's been a difference in terms of how services can be delivered and how efficiently some services are being delivered. I've experienced that having to go to some offices and being told, well, the reason this hasn't happened and that hasn't happened is that we've not had staff out in a particular way, which proves to be quite frustrating for the public. So, human resource deployment wise, right? This is the
Yeah.
nicest way I could put it. In terms of deploying human resources and in terms
Yes.
of implementing processes and strategies, how, if I think that's going to, let me just say it bold. Let me not dress it up. Let me not pretty it up. I think
Uh,
that's the biggest challenge facing the government at this point in time in terms of human resource management, right? And
yes.
in terms of running itself. You have
Yes.
a workforce, and the workforce is 60% of the working population, right? So we know the government is the biggest employer.
Yes.
Right now, 50% of that 60%, so 50% of, whatever that 60% is, they are functioning at home or functioning remotely or rotating or, whatever is the system that is being used. But it is not as efficient. And I feel as if the persons that are responsible for managing the public sector, so that's not you, because that's not your role. Your role is to
Right.
drive policy, right? But I feel as if the
Yes.
persons who are responsible for managing the public sector, the technocrats that are at that top managerial level, whether it's the permanent secretaries or whoever, they have to start to come up with innovative ideas to allow for all of that flexible work to take place.
Yes, and
Uh,
and it's also one of the reasons why we have these state enterprises because they tend to have more of a private sector
Approach.
ethos to the way that they do things. So it's a combination really of the traditional public sector, but also the state enterprises, and we hope that that hybrid model is one that can come up with more creative ideas and also improve the implementation. I know that's one of the general criticisms that we have here in Trinidad and Tobago in general, the implementation of policy and so on. So we are hoping, and to make driver behind the TTRA also, and many of these other bodies to improve efficiency. So that's what we're hoping for.
Right. And so, how are you seeing the TTRA driving more efficiency with it in terms of digitization, or in terms of digital services, access to digital services?
Yes. Well, the services are now available online. More information is also available online. You can pay your taxes online. It makes it easier to link both customs to the tax collection. So it would be very strange for a business to be importing $10 million in goods, but paying $200,000 in taxes. Those anomalies become a lot clearer going forward. So it's easier to crack down on those persons who have been avoiding paying taxes, and that lightens the burden for all. So the TTRA, as I said, increases efficiency. We are hoping that it also makes it easier for persons to do their needful.
I'm seeing that there's going to be restructuring of the TTMF and the Home Mortgage Bank, and an IPO is going to be offered. What are your thoughts
Yes.
on that restructuring? Where do you think that is going to how do you think that is going to help the HDC?
Yeah, it's a fantastic move in terms of consolidating those two organizations. You have to remember a large part of the TTMF is owned by the NIB, and there's a shortage of basically as TT dollar assets in Trinidad and Tobago. So a lot of the TT dollar funds.
This also allows the NIB to earn a little bit more money, doesn't it?
Exactly. It also allows them to issue various assets for the TT dollar funds in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
You know, you have the UTC, the NIB is the single largest TT dollar fund at about $27 billion. There are other smaller funds at the banks and so on that would also would want to invest in various assets. So it does create that, and it makes it a bit easier to finance persons who want to be first-time home owners. What was announced in the budget was really a reform of the HDC, where we separated into various arms. One arm would become basically a landlord, which should manage the stock of HDC units that already exist and the ones that will come online eventually. And another arm will be involved strictly in the construction of new units. That's to promote efficiency and also to reduce some of the costs and bureaucracy that is taking place there. It makes it easier also to finance a lot of those projects from the TTMF.
I feel like the HDC is one of those entities that that has undergone a certain amount of change and rebranding. Because I remember when it was NHA. Right, and then we've gone from NHA to HDC, and well, now there is going to be this split. Now I think that the split is necessary, but at the same time I feel that the problems with most, if not all, of these state institutions, state enterprises, so whether it's ministries or enterprises, is really the mindset of persons inside there, because you'd have all of these various departments. So I feel, like a human resource shift,
yes.
a cultural shift.
A reform is needed. We are hoping that this paradigm shift will accomplish some of that. I'm not saying it's a cure-all or it's going to fix every problem in HDC, but we are hoping that this shift in the way it operates and the shift in thinking is going to promote more efficiency. People look at the allocation to HDC, which I'm looking at my notes, was about $610 million, and ask why did they receive more? But the Ministry of Housing is one of those ministries that's supposed to generate its own revenues, generate its own income. So there's going to be a move to really collect outstanding payments on persons who may owe the Ministry of Housing and the HDC in terms of mortgage payments and rental payments. And that, of course, will require its own resources, while the construction arm would be doing, the needful in other parts of the country.
As you're talking about the allocations there, I'm looking at them now and realizing, education and training remains our highest allocation. For a couple of years, national security had overtaken education. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can bring that up here so that folks can see it. Oops, just now. Let me put you back and let me add that. Right, and let me... Yeah.
What are you, tech savvy?
Listen to me. Listen to me. Right? They can't talk to me. I have pivoted in this pandemic, right? So what I've noted is that education and training is back up there, right? As opposed to national security being a huge thing. Because national security for a couple of years had overtaken education and training. And health used to be a little bit lower down. But I'm noting education is back up there, and I think education is incredibly important. And health is right under education, I guess, as a result of, the period we're going through. And national security is a little bit lower. So, but I want to ask this. We are accustomed to seeing between $9 and $10 billion on education on an annual basis, right? We regularly, that's the kind of money we spent on education. That dropped from 9/circa 10 to 6, just under $7 billion. How do you foresee something like that being utilized? Like, where do you see the thrusts being?
Yeah, well, we had to make some reductions overall in terms of expenditure, so as to not create fiscal issues going forward. We're still operating in a pandemic. Our revenue generation has been impugned, and we had to be cautious. But with that being said, we understand that education is extremely important and is the main pillar of our national development. We want to develop more knowledge-based industries going forward, and we believe that is going to be a huge part of our economy. So you can't participate in knowledge-based industries without a highly qualified, well-educated workforce. And that is one of our competitive advantages. We are between two large continents, North America, South America, and we have an English-speaking, well-educated workforce, and that makes us more attractive for foreign direct investment. So we have to create the environment to attract investors in Trinidad and Tobago and to create jobs for our people.
I'll tell you what one of my bugbears are. I really and truly think that we dropped the ball by not keeping a focus on technical vocational training. And because you are in one of the most powerful ministries in the country, and you probably see the person who, the other minister, whisper in his ear and tell him, technical vocation training, right? I feel, no, seriously.
I'll mention it
yes,
next time I see him.
Right, next time you see him, mention it and say that I really feel that more of a focus on technical vocational training is going to feed into the entrepreneurial sector as well. I really think that if you're looking to have a society be retooled and to have people be prepared to get more into digitization and doing, because you mentioned some really important things in terms of digitization, and I feel if we're going to be able to do those things and do those things effectively, then tech voc training is incredibly important.
We're going to need more electricians,
yes,
more people with wiring skills.
Yes.
We're going to need all of those.
That's what we're going to need. And so I feel tech voc training is incredibly important, and I don't want us to miss the boat on that. But as we get close to the 8 p.m. hour, I don't want to not have that conversation about curry. We have to have...
Rhoda, I am amazed. Sometimes your head is down during the day, working on some really serious and important issues, and then you get a message from a member of the media saying, were you aware that curry was already on the zero-rated list? And how was curry mentioned again to be placed on the zero-rated list? I think it's, I have a constituency of approximately 25,000 people. Many of them need assistance during this pandemic. And whether curry is on the zero-rated list or not was not a big part of my day today. So I think a lot of people need to focus more on the big picture. And also the big picture means promoting more vaccinations in Trinidad and Tobago, really important issues that can help us reopen our economy and bring our lives back to some semblance of normalcy, and to improve Trinidad and Tobago instead of focusing on stuff that just at the end of the day doesn't really mean much.
So at the end of the day today, there was a press release from the Ministry of Finance, your ministry actually, with a more comprehensive list. So I'm seeing vegetable and soya bean oil, olive oil, coconut oil, canola, ghee, peanut butter, black pepper and other spices, family cereals, kids cereals, hot cereals, milk substitute, condensed milk, instant coffee, ground coffee, steel cut oats, black tea, green tea, orange juice, apple juice, still water, seasoned meat, sausages, a list of canned meats here, tuna, mackerel, then I'm seeing peas, beans, corn, canned of course, canned mixed vegetables, mayonnaise, ketchup, roti skins. Somebody needs to tell the Ministry of Finance there's no such thing as a roti skinner, it's roti. Right? Soup, like packaged soup, jeera, crushed or ground, soya chunks, soya mince, ground dal, cheese slices, table butter, pigtail, ham slices, turkey slices, chicken luncheon meats, bologna, fresh juice, biscuit and crackers.
Rhoda. Not chicken. The official name is Gallus domesticus.
Gallus domesticus. Sorry, Gallus domesticus.
Because I have spent the past few weeks going through all of those lists, looking at various items.
So this is the list of items that have just been as of Monday zero rated. So no VAT on these items. And when I'm finished, I'm going to put that list up. Now, the two things struck me when I saw that list. One, that it was way more comprehensive, obviously, than what the minister read out on Monday, but I didn't expect him to read out an entire list like this. And two, This coupled with what is happening at NAMDEFCO, I can't stop singing praises for NAMDEFCO because
I agree.
I am in the market every Saturday, and my food bill, I mean, I can't tell people what to do with their money, but my food bill went down considerably the minute I started just going to the market on a weekly basis and buying fresh what I need for the week.
Yeah.
So I would go and I would know, all right, this is what I need. I need fresh fish. I need vegetables. I need starches, and everything that I required would be there pretty much in the market. With this consideration here, on this VAT list, I feel, well, based on what I mean, this is of course if the supermarkets and they don't put their an extra markup on the prices, I feel this can offer further relief. So I was very happy to see the extent of the list, because there are a lot of really usual, basic, general items that most homes consume on the list.
Yes.
But are you not concerned about revenue loss when you take VAT off these items?
Well, the increase in cost in food prices has really come from international forces. One is supply chain issues. Also, the increased cost of shipping around the world has increased the cost of food items. So the government wanted to do something to protect our people, especially the most vulnerable, as we've always said and maintained. So we removed VAT on basic food items. We have removed import duties on some of those basic items also. But we've also added VAT to some luxury food items.
Right.
So we want to protect the most vulnerable while also protecting our foreign exchange supply, so that people, if you want to eat lobster, then you have to pay more for it. But to ensure that persons can survive by having access to relatively inexpensive basic food items, and we will attempt to make up that revenue loss in other areas. Like I said, the gaming bill to regulate the gaming industry alone is expected to attract $500 million a year going forward, and also the improved tax that should also improve tax collection generally. So we thought that this is something that we could do to protect people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. Just now I need to go into my chats here and mute somebody. Oh my goodness, this person is just so ridiculous. Right. So as I'm talking about muting people. Well, I don't know if I'm going to mute this or not mute this. I guess what I will do is just there's something I want you to listen to, and then I want you to explain it to me, please. All right?
Okay.
This is Nigel Coutier.
And this is Brian Manning. Parang time.
Call out to your neighbor.
Can you explain this to me?
Together. Christmas time is here.
Explain this to me. What, you're leaving the Ministry of Finance now? What is going on? You've joined a boy band?
I got together with a counselor from San Fernando East, a very influential, popular guy who is a jack of all trades. And he had a Christmas song last year called Hold Something.
Right.
So I said to him, Nigel, this year I want to be on your Christmas song, right? So I said to him, I thought he meant I would do like an introduction, I might do a little line in the chorus, something. Nigel says, no. We're going to sing a duet.
Hold on, the audience want to hear. So let me play it for them. No, they want to hear. They demanding. They want to hear.
Call out to your friends.
Come, let's spend Christmas together.
Christmas time is here. Can you feel it? It's in the air.
I call to one and all. Start up the music. Let's have a ball. Quattro play the song
while we sing along.
Sorrel in my hand
while we sing Paran.
Children laugh and sing
to the joy it brings.
Eats and drinks for so
you touch here, to have a Merry Christmas.
I am impressed. I am impressed. I would never have thought. Let's just say it. Let's play it this way. In hearing your voice, Brian, Parandera is not what came to mind.
Trust me, I had no idea, no clue. He said, you don't worry, we have a voice coach. He will coach you. right? Plus we'll work some studio magic, and we're going to make a parang.
Right.
Say, all right, boss, if you say so. And it took several hours. We put it together, and next thing I know, I'm hearing this song that has completely baffled my family members.
Did you recognize your voice in it? When you heard it eventually, it was like, is that is me? Or you?
Well, I sang it, so I did, but I played it for my mother a few months ago.
Yeah.
And she said, who is that? Who's that on that song? I said, look, Hazel, that is me. So we just wanted to really bring some of that Christmas joy and spirit to the constituency and to the national community. It started off as something small in San Fernando East, and it has grown bigger than we ever thought it would have. We've been asked for interviews. Radio stations have been calling for this song, and they've been playing it. So I'm extremely grateful. And we're going to have our usual San Fernando East Christmas giveaway, where we give out toys to children and have basically a parang Christmas caravan.
Okay.
And, so we're going to be doing great things in the constituency for Christmas, because during this time, after so much adversity, we really wanted to bring some joy and some energy, and to remind people of that Christmas spirit of giving.
Especially since we've had last Christmas was a kind of different kind of Christmas, because you couldn't meet.
A muted Christmas.
Very muted sort of Christmas, and I think with increased vaccination this year, hopefully Christmas can be a little less muted than it was last year.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we hope so too. If people would go get vaccinated, yes, it'd make it a lot easier for everyone. And we are going to be out in the field promoting vaccination, and also assisting those who need help and want to enjoy Christmas and bring some of that joy to the members of the national community.
All right.
So we're going to be out there.
Well, this is where we wrap it up. I thank you so much for the hour. Enjoy your 3 hours and 30 something minutes of response time on Friday.
heading back to the Red Gulag on Friday.
Yes, the Red Gulag on Friday. Enjoy your 3 hours and 30 something minutes. I think you get 45 minutes as somebody who's participating in the debate.
Yes, 45 minutes.
All right, good. Well, I mean, we will have you back, because there's more that I want to discuss with respect to the Revenue Authority and, of course, property tax. But, as that progresses and it becomes a bigger thing, we'll have you back.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having me, Rhoda, and thank you, Trinidad and Tobago, for tuning in.
Okay,
all the best,
great.
everyone.
All right, thank you so much.
Go listen to some parang tonight, okay?
I'm going to play some parang for them. They're going to hear the rest of the song. Take care.
All the best.
Bye. Right, so that was Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Brian Manning, who spent some time with us here, and I'm happy that we had the opportunity to have the conversation with him, and that we had the opportunity to start to talk about the budget. We ain't done talk about the budget yet, because there are a number of initiatives within the budget that I want for us to have a serious conversation about. I want to talk some more about the small and medium incentives. I want to talk some more about the various IPOs, because I want to encourage us to get into entrepreneurship and to get into investment. So I still sticking in Minister Imbert's tail for him to come here and have a conversation with us. I will nag, and hopefully I will get through. Before I run off though, I want to say this. Monday, something really weird happened. There was that outage. And as a result of that outage, it meant that if I was planning to have a live or go live on the Monday afternoon, I would not have been able to do it via Facebook. And so you all would not have been able to see me. I have a YouTube channel. I set up a YouTube channel about a couple months now. And I just want to remind folks that there is a YouTube channel. It's called NewSauce, NEWSAUSE, right? Just like my Facebook page. Please go and subscribe to the channel. So that way, if anything like that outage happens again, we are in a position where we could still meet, just not on this platform. We could meet on a different platform and hold our vibes, hold our meditation, discuss things. So go find me on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. I mean, I'm still going to have the program here on Facebook and back it up to YouTube afterwards, which is the practice I have right now. But go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So if anything happens, you will get the notification letting you know that I have uploaded something to YouTube. SAUCE, NEWSAUCE. And of course, I'm on Twitter, right? You could just go and look for Rhoda Barrett on Twitter and follow me on the Twitters. right? And so music.
This is Nigel Coutier.
And this is Brian Manning.
Alright.
Time.
Call out to your neighbor.
Call out to your friends.
Come, let's spend Christmas together.
Christmas time is here. Can you feel it? It's in the air.
Y'all have a good evening. See you on Friday.
Start up the music. Let's have a ball. Quattro play the song.
While we